That. Roll call, please.
Miss Bailey here. I'm sorry, Miss Brady here. Miss Brady is proxy for Dr. Cable today. Miss Coleman here. Dr. Davis. Mr. Estes. Dr. Henderson
Here.
Miss Lawson here. Miss Talbert. Miss Merrick. Mr. Powell.
Here.
Have 6 was just represent a quorum.
It does, right?
Yes.
Correct. All right, good start. Introductions and announcements. Is this, there we go.
Mr. Boer has 1. The Boer, the corner.
There, oh, sorry. It's working on my spouse's lips. That's right. Good morning, everyone. I'd like to introduce our newest employee in the Scholarship and Grant Division. This is Devin Alexander. Devin started with us at the end of December, and we didn't have it ready for January. We have a meeting in February, so March, here we are. She works in our initial eligibility division, and her specialty is working with homeschool students. The Department of Education are verifying those students who apply for times as a homeschool student. She comes to us from the LSU area of student aid and enrollment management. So we're very happy to have Devin join us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I make an announcement from something that just happened this morning? I just left the Department of Education's counselor collaboration meeting. And in there, they gave us a lot of updates on all kinds of things. And they talked about FAFSA completion. They showed the Compete to Complete website, directed people there. But one of the things that they talked about was if we had difficulty to contact Mary Bailey at the Department of Ed, that she will come out to your school, she'll have a night, she'll do whatever she can to get 100% completion because that is her goal. And they said in this meeting that you have broken through the top 10 in the nation for FAFSA completion. Like sixth in the nation. And so like it was exciting for us to hear that, but like it's a battle for us every day. And this is the first year I've called Barry, and I had this grand plan of how I was gonna do this event. And Barry was the only one that showed up. So we had to pivot and change things. And that day we got like 15 students completed, and it was helpful for me this year. So thank you for all that you're doing. I didn't know that, but now that I do, like we're definitely TNG senior praises because you have helped us tremendously. Thank you.
Any other? All right, next we have approval of the minutes. I did read them over and I appreciate making the edits last time. There are no corrections to the minutes. We have a motion to approve them as presented. So. Yes, first and second, thank you. The minutes are now moved and seconded. Any objections? All right, minutes have been approved. Public comment.
No comments.
Okay, thank you. All right, program updates. And
Good morning.
good morning.
This is the number of accounts as well as the amount of deposits that we have invested for START programs at the end of January this year. Other than accepting deposits and issuing disbursements, we've been working on implementation of prepaid cards for our able account holders. So they would have more access to their funds than they currently have by receiving a check or an EFT to a bank account. 22 able account statements have been mailed. The 22 account statements for K-12 being prepared now for mailing. For START, we've been verifying the owner AGI to pay the earning enhancements. Interest in earning enhancements to be posted early this month. The 22 statements will be prepared and mailed
to the account holders for start prior to the end of the month. Anyone have any questions?
Questions, comments?
Thank you very much.
Thank you. College access success communications.
Good morning still.
Yes.
Good morning, everybody. So since we began our virtual sessions in March of 2020, we have 2,436 of those, with top student hub and FAFSA assistance being the most popular. And then we have had 306 virtual events. For professional development, the topics have included working with undocumented students, elevating virtual meetings and presentations, changes that will be happening with the FAFSA, managing time, partnerships to influence FAFSA completion, from the SREB, raising the college success levels in the South. We are also instituting some of those practices that have come from the presentation and from the documents from that into some practices that are here at LOSFA as well. So that was very, very helpful. A guide for new financial aid professionals, and then how parents can help other students through the admissions process.
Thank you. And so previously this year, we reported that several of our team members have completed the in-can training for the certified advisor. So one of our public information officers, Kayla Grove, has also, in addition to that, also earned the student outcome badges. So it's already a pretty heavy lift with, I think, like maybe 22 or 23 courses that have to be taken just for the certified advisor badge alone. So Kayla, of course, is taking these additional courses to earn this student outcome badge. And then we also did a meeting with FSA. Of course, they will be rolling out the new FAFSA, with that FAFSA Simplification Act. And so we met with them basically to kind of discuss some upcoming challenges, things of that nature that they may foresee in the future. And it was myself, Paul Smith with SG, Ms. Deborah, and then Alice as well. And this is from the Louisiana Momentum Summit, the first of its kind. And so as you can see, for those of you that don't know where we are at Tiger Stadium. And so it was a 2-day event where basically the Louisiana Board of Regents organized the event, and several members or team members from LOSFA served as facilitators. All 28 public post-secondary institutions were gathered there. Each of us as a facilitator was in a different institution. And so basically this was a place for intensive discussion to take place to see how these institutions can help us reach the goal of doubling post-secondary educational credentials by 2030. So I see some head nodding over there. So very, really good summit. Not sure if it will be repeated, but it was impressive just to be in the room and just to be there to hear those conversations take place. One of the really neat things about the Momentum Summit is that there was also a student voice present in there in the room with college presidents and things of that nature. So very impressive. So, and then Kayla has been a busy bee. She also facilitated a financial literacy program with LSU Health Science Center in Shreveport. They reached out to us and asked that we have one of our LOSFA representatives provide that for their students. And so that's where she basically went over money mindset, evaluating finances, things of that nature with those particular students at that event. And then she also represented LOSFA at the Louisiana ACT Summit. For those of you that are not familiar with her name, Kayla is also our state coordinator for LCAM, which is Louisiana College Application and Access Fund. So this is right up close to our house, and participating and working with ACT. And she discussed a little bit about partnerships, college access, and some of the initiatives that we have.
Continuing CASC outreach, I went into detail on this at our last meeting in January, but this is where we're officially reporting that it took place. There's some photos from our Girl Scouts of Louisiana Peace Partnership, where we went to Smart with you. Fantastic reception. The students were very much engaged. The parents were also. And so from that, where we worked with students, sort of a toned down fly tour, not nearly as long as it normally would be. But they were so impressed with it that they have decided that they are going to restructure Smart to make the fly tour component the ending of that experience and to give us more time as well. So this is sort of the first programmatic event that we've had with our partnership. But it continues to grow, continues to develop, and then they're also working on their Dream Lab that will open up soon, where they are going to be working with the Girl Scouts and their parents and guardians in order to get them engaged in STEM activities, financial literacy education, entrepreneurship, college preparation. And so we will be involved as an educational partner in that. Continuing our partnership with the Girl Scouts, there was an event earlier this month. Daniel has been instrumental in spearheading our translation projects that we're doing, getting documents translated, which I'll talk about in a minute, as well as things on our website. But we had the 529 flyers translated into Spanish for this event. And so the Potato de Galletas event, which is the cookie count event, it is an event that they have that is bilingual. They have a large Spanish-speaking population of students that they serve their members as well as their parents. So they asked us to be there to share information on the 529 accounts. And so Daniel was able not only to table and to distribute flyers, but in Spanish and English to deliver a presentation on 529 accounts as well. And then through Daniel and Andrew, Andrew's so great at finding whatever tool or widget you need for something. We now have translation available on our website as well. Spanish, Arabic, Chinese, Vietnamese. You can do the drop in and it will translate the text that is on the website. And so these are just initial steps that we're taking to improve accessibility for all the students and parents and constituents that we serve. And then we have translated a lot of really important documents that we use as well. All of our 529 account flyers, essential tops information including FAFSA and student hub information as well. And so that's sort of phase one of the resource translation. We will continue to identify resources and languages that we want to translate into. Currently, we have resources available in Arabic, Spanish, and Vietnamese. And as counselors or other partners reach out to us with specific documents to be translated in specific language, we'll do that as well.
Thank you.
All right.
Who does the translation?
Oh, there's Google
Translate it yourself.
yeah, drop it in there. We just hope and pray that we get as close as possible. There is a company that called Transcend, I believe. Yeah. And so we're able to send them the design files of what it is, and they're able to update it and just send it right back. It's very easy process. Once we finalized the contract, it was a matter of days before we got all the documents back. Yeah, very recent. Okay. Oh, so for our social media update, this is going to be between December 22nd and February 16th. Some of our popular posts that we had during National Women's Month, we did a feature on the Silva Malvo and Marsha Beard through our student engagement division, just because of the work that they're doing with students and the student network groups in particular. The Girl Scouts event and the most popular usually remains our monthly scholarships that we post. And then last month was also Financial Aid Awareness Month, and so we shared a lot of information on ways that students can get financial aid, not only through LOSFA, but what federal aid is available, what institutional aid is available, and other essential information developed that we can highlight throughout the month for students, parents, resources for counselors, those kinds of things. We're really trying to showcase as we develop our campaigns and our celebratory or highlight months, weeks, days, etc. And then across all our social media accounts, we had just over 281,000 impressions. So, and then there are analytics on some of the balance of our scholarships that we've noticed and financial aid awareness. Any questions?
Any questions? I have a question. When you go out to these groups, do you still get concerns about inadequate access to broadband? Are we doing better on that? I mean, that's been a huge problem, I know, for people in the state and students particularly.
I've not heard that. However, we are going to do a push soon about broadband access and other resources that are available to parents and students, particularly staff benefits as well. So we're looking to identify what resources we need, what reference services we need to provide. And so that will be part of that. There's some information that we received from Dr. Denton a few months ago that we're pushing that out as part of that, sort of a comprehensive, and also promoting our general resources that we have available on the sites. So we just want to make sure that all the resources that we have available, we're promoting and pushing those out as much as possible. I've not got any feedback that I've been to recently about that issue.
Not yet, but then again, I have not been, kind of in the Sabines and Pleasant Hill and those areas where it may very well still,
There are some rural areas in central Louisiana that have broadband issues and access. And also I've noticed with a couple exceptions that Hurricane Laura and that area, the broadband and the internet connection is not what it was prior to Laura. So that's also something that they have to work with.
I'll speak to my area. It's just as bad as it was before. We have not even gotten broadband out there in the rural areas. So you probably can speak that way in Northeast Louisiana. When I was there, broadband is, I mean, you can barely get like maybe satellite or, it's a dial-in almost, some of those places.
And I think after some of the storms, whatever they did have, it's a little bit there.
It's this right here, but with like a 1 bar of signal. It's
Right.
about what my students
Right.
have. And you can call it a hotspot, but the hotspot has the same problem.
Right.
So you're always having to contemplate workarounds to get students to finish. Build things, and it's just not. Thank you. I
I can speak to that right now. Like this also happened today. Career Compass is at my school right now. I have about 15 kids that haven't completed their FAFSA, okay? But I'm at the point now where it's like, can we get a parent on the phone? And now we're putting out parent signature pages, which is a step that delays a lot of things. But that's where I'm at right now because parents don't even have transportation to get to the school. This is where we are. This is what we're gonna do. I mean, we have to do that because we want it to be done. The students want it to be done. It's the parents that can't get there. They don't have the internet access or they don't know how to do it, but yet they can't get to us. I mean, even if we have an event, they can't get to us. So, I mean, that's how we are working around it, but we don't have control over that.
Or if they get there, whatever room we're in, particularly the library, which is generally in the central part of the school. Which is around every thick wall of cement it can possibly be in. And so when it's time to do username and password, and we have to get text messages and emails, we're walking halfway across campus to get it. And if we get a pizza bar and we get it, it's timed us out. So we definitely have to come up with tricks and tricks to kind of get around that part. And so even on campus, even the students' access to Wi-Fi is still horrible. It doesn't really help them in a lot of cases. So we do have to come around, like you said, at the end, in some cases, we are printing signature pages to get it done. So
we do not want to do the waivers. Like we'll even get them submitted and then it'll be the error and then we'll fix the error later, but we've got to get that first part done. So
because we do know that at the end, many of them will change their mind about going to school. It may not be today. They still have the application is good for a year and a half. So we do try to say, hey, you may not like this program today, or you may find something that is totally, or nobody ever spoke to you about what it is. Because a lot of times, matter of fact, yesterday in Vidalia, there was a student, his dad we had a whole conversation before the student walked in about what he thought the student wanted. And so when we started talking and he opened up his Chromebook and I was like, oh, you like anime? Like, yes. I was like, did you know that there is a school in our state for that? And nobody had ever talked to him about it. So I was like, why don't you go? I said, I'm not going to pressure you on where you need to go, but these are some schools that potentially may have what you're looking for. So why don't you peruse on your own time and look and see, and then when I come back, maybe we'll, if you're ready to talk about it, I'm here. So I do like to let them know that the dad had his own idea of what he thought, so, and he was like, he's quiet, he doesn't talk. Well, guess what, we're gonna talk about it today. So like, I just threw some stuff out there just to let you know that we have it. If you're interested, it's there. If not, maybe later on you may find something else. I said, if you have, we left spaces on your application for you to add school. So if you find something else, I can definitely walk you through a bad name, but,
I just got a text message from Kirk College just now, mission accomplished, because normally they email it to me and I print it out. I found somebody else to print it out. Like, can you please ask this person? So literally right now in real time, 2 kids have just printed out their parents' sheets to be able to do it. Like, that's where, like, we are all having to work together.
And I appreciate you sharing that, being looked together, because I think we tend to forget that it's not just Louisiana and some black hole. These are problems all over the state. Like, if you were. No, and it's important, and I appreciate Ethan here. We just have a unique set of problems in this state, I think. Maybe not so unique, but people need to be reminded that,
I can speak to Northeast Atlanta. I worked there 10 years of my life before I moved back home to this area. I got a smartphone because the GPS would end you up in a cornfield. Like, that did not even work, just 15 years ago. And so when I got it, I would have to go to the library to print out something. I mean, I really became resourceful. It was the best learning experience for me, because when you have nothing, you figure out how to make it work. So that was the gift that Northeast Louisiana gave me. And I know right now, I haven't been back to all those areas, but when I drive by, if I'm passing through, it's not any better. Very, very little.
So you work with AT&T on a lot, and they have made some dramatic improvements in access to broadband, especially in the Northeast, within and other parts. It's adoption by the end users, very slow, and there's
They can't afford it.
socioeconomic factors and that it's expensive. We got to figure that out from a state policy perspective. That just having access to it, if you can't afford it, what have we really done? And is there a strategic imperative for us to provide access? It's becoming more of a necessity. It's not a luxury.
right.
And the poverty that is there. I mean, like, if you have $100, you're not about to pay for broadband. You're going to put food on the table for your kids. And that's exactly what we dealt with every single day.
The infrastructure piece, great strides, great strides.
Still lots of work to be done,
Yes.
for sure.
Right,
Oh, yeah.
right.
Once you get north of I-20, especially
I-
Lake Providence, Oak
Yep.
Grove,
Right.
Tallulah was where I spent about the
Yeah,
majority of my time there.
a good bit about that area. It's north of I-20. If you're not along 165, 167, 165,
All of
you're
those
gonna have
areas.
inadequate access
Yeah.
to that. And that's not necessarily, obviously, our control. Certain policies can sort of pertain to it. It's a big issue.
But to that point, so if you're relying on private providers to build that infrastructure, they've got to be at that expense, right? You can't rely on the for-profit company to build broadband infrastructure to get one customer, right? There's a dichotomy there that we've got to figure that out. And new infrastructure dollar, $1.5 trillion infrastructure bill that's out there, that's how it's designed.
Thank you. And I appreciate you sharing the stories, because at a time when schools seem to be under attack, and the feeling is they're just not doing anything worthwhile, this is what you are doing. And it matters a lot in this state.
I used to always say, people in Baton Rouge, New Orleans have a different, like, they don't have this perspective. And if I ever get back down there, I will always speak to it, because people need to know there's nobody advocating for them, because you're not going there, because there's nothing there to really draw people to know there. It's resourceful. I love it. It's a beautiful country, like countryside. It's wonderful. I'm stress-free for me when I would drive those routes. Nobody's going to just go vacation out there. You're going to go to Baton Rouge, the game, you're going to go to New Orleans. And so there's not an awareness there. I won't ever stop speaking about it.
Look what you have told us, that where you are. Tell everybody, make sure they understand where you are located.
Right now, currently,
Yeah.
I'm in Tangier Parish.
So people are not thinking tangible parent
And that is,
Has
that issue. They're not. We understand, you know, historically, the Lake Providence, but we're not thinking this is all around the state. I'm sure that Dr. Henderson will share. So I won't take up more of the time. Does anybody have any, but I appreciate it. Anybody have anything else they want to add on the subject? Okay, moving to student engagement then. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Right, go to the next first slide. Two slides I'm going to share with you, but there's a cluster of activities going on both of them. At our last meeting, we had not yet had our joint kickoff session for the spring semester of our network group. So let's just start there. As shared on that visual, we kicked off on January 3rd when we had a joint session of all of our network groups. Since then, we launched our seven network groups to target the education majors. Just want to highlight joint kickoff, including one of the board members of the Southern University system, but it's also a practicing physician known as the hip hop doc, whereby he uses medium of hip hop to impart health messaging. So we invited him to kick off the semester with our students, giving them tips on not just physical health, but also their personal branding as they prepare for their launch of their careers and what have you there. Of note, in this kickoff, where we had a heavy presence of employers and professionals that were there to engage with our students, to avail themselves to our students throughout the semester, and that was so encouraging to see that. Again, as a result of that kickoff session, we do an evaluation at all of our meetings, and one of the students requested within our evaluation that we consider a platform for them to connect outside of that 1 hour, 1 night per month meeting. And so we yielded and that one student's request, and I would spend the month of February in our meetings polling each student in our network group about what were their best modalities preferred, and came up with a mix, you know, the usual Facebook or Instagram or the group me, which is already, a lot of us already had a cluster of group meets available to them. But of particular note, one student in our last session said, what about LinkedIn? I said, why not? We try to connect our students to professionals, we're trying to engage them in a professional manner, we're trying to encourage them towards such applications. And so that's where we are going from as a result of that connection there. With our education, thank my colleague for Paul, representative of our cross collaboration we do in LOSFA, Kate shared in our education student network, which in February was our first meeting. And she shared all things about the Go Teach Scholarship Program. So those students that were matriculating became aware of the additional resource funding, financial aid that's available to them. So again, that was held, and we're looking forward to grow more students there. Again, we were encouraged by the presence of educational professionals that heard about our group and say we want to be a part of that to mentor and encourage our students as they move through. Next slide, please. One other thing I just want to add back to the slides about our network group. You would see there's an increased number of secondary schools. That was because we had invited some of our secondary students to participate in that group. That was on a previous slide. It's going into our launch of transition student network that I will report more in depth in our next meeting on. But this particular slide here captures some of our engagement activities that we endeavor in our division. The first picture was already previously reported by our CAST division, the Momentum Summit, where we again were invited to the regions to facilitate select institutions. Mine was LSU. And I would say that was a connecting strengthen, LSUS's plans regarding their advocacy center and also the work they're doing in their country. So we're looking at how we can make sure that as more and more of our institutions are addressing our students' own needs, that LOSFA can become that clearinghouse of sorts so that we can share and refer our students to that. Any questions?
Any questions? Comments? Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, field outreach services, I think is next.
Before Dr. Cobb goes, I think Shane had another brief update, right?
I did.
Or Andrew.
We're going to do it after the whole.
Whatever.
So is Dr. Cobb coming or is Andrew going? Okay.
Sounds
Thank you.
good. Good morning. How's it going? So in this update, I know earlier, we were talking about, the north. So, this talks about the north and it also talks about tangible whole parish, right? So as a part of our Connected Success Initiative and, the STEM work that we do with schools, on the right side of the screen, this is taking tangible whole parish, right? That sells EQ. Andrew will want me to say line it up because that's one of my alma maters too. So that's taking the Lions up to Tallulah, so to the north. So and that's really powerful because those students in Tallulah may not have a chance to actually see what's going on at Southeastern. So as you may recall, when COVID shut everything down, he actually kept things going with 13 summer programs. And as a part of the Southeastern programs, they did these sessions that they're taking to some schools now, and some schools are actually coming to them for to actually participate in those. And so on the right side of the screen with Madison High School, this is a session called Beat the Bug. And this is all about health sciences. So from Madison High School, they learned about viruses, bacteria, infectious agents, and also, which is very important, a healthy lifestyle. And students love competition, so they actually created a brush bot that they actually raced. So that was really, exciting for the students. And they had a lot of hands-on experiences with this. And so this is one part of it. So this is actually Southeastern bringing that experience to Madison High School. On the right side, this is Iberia Parish going over to Tangible Whole Parish, right? So this is Westgate High School and Nish, which has a pretty large cohort of students over there. This is them actually going over to Southeastern to actually work with the professors and the students there. And for Westgate, it was roller coaster physics, and I've had a chance to participate or join those sessions. So that's really interesting how they actually teach students about physics as it relates to skateboarding and roller coasters. So that was Westgate, and the second was Nish. So aquaponics, right? So learning how to farm, so to speak, in a 2-liter bottle. So that's what Nish actually was able to do hands-on at Southeastern. Next slide. So as a part of our Europe program, we have a club. And Tammy Thomas, who's a former Europe student, she actually went out to Madison High School, Manny Junior High School, so in Manny, Louisiana. She was invited out to work with the club officers. So each club in our middle and high schools have club officers. And this particular training with these officers was done, it's like a trainer. So they actually operate their club on their campuses. So this activity, one of the activities they did was who's at your table? The power of having the right people around you is one of the activities that she did with them. And that's, the club officers there working with Timmy Thomas. It's actually what I did today. And on the right side of the screen,
we're missing our graphic there, but that's okay. We do a virtual boot camp. So we do several series of professional development. This was the virtual boot camp that we did in January. And as a part of that, our team, Jeannie Moore and our academic content specialist, and Tiffany Thomas, advocacy specialist, they work together to come up with these activities to engage our schools, especially when it's virtual, right? So because we're focusing on closing out strong and sustainability of the programming on the campuses, this was an activity called Alphabet Ideas. So for every last letter of the alphabet, the participants actually gave a word about how to close out strong, how to sustain programming on their campus, which was really exciting. They jumped ahead. They had some problems with the letter X, but they got very creative with that. And as you know, when I reported on our boot camps in the past, the schools love to hear from other schools, right? So we did do a moderated panel and focus in on, again, close out and sustainability on those campuses. So they heard from their peers from Martin Urban in New Orleans, Scotlandville, East St. John High, and Carroll High School about how to do this with model practices. Next slide, please. Okay, so for the 2023 ACT Summit, LOSFA was very well represented. So there were 5 concurrent sessions that was actually done. And it was really done on 3 levels. So we had sessions done from the post-secondary level, our content team. We had sessions that were done on the grammatic level with our regional coordinators, see up there, Ebony Mitchell and Harriet Spurlock. And also on the school level, which is Anitra Walker. She did 2 sessions, one impacting an unmotivated student, changing the trajectory on him or her, and also how do you engage parents? So these are some of the basis behind those other experiences that we've heard of about the STEM. These are some of our post-secondary partners, and I say some because these are really the administrators behind it from these campuses, but the professors, the students, they do a lot of the work with the students to actually do these STEM activities. So they did an excellent job. Next slide. Okay, so on the right side of the screen, this is a post-secondary persistence campaign. As you know, our Europe program has 7-year services where we provide support to students who are in the pipeline, right? Who are in their first year of college. We partner with our post-secondary institutions and our staff here. They actually reach out. We have teams that reach out, and they do all levels. So text, we do that. We do it in emails and good old phone calls, right? And so we talk to a lot of parents as well, when we don't reach those students. So as a part of this, our fiscal team worked together with audit and legal to come up with a gift card policy. And so we have 2 gift cards that have been donated from Topgolf and from Target, and we'll be giving those out really soon. These are tasks that we ask our students to do: program participation, college benchmarks. And when they do these, they are actually entered into a drawing. And so we'll report out on those 2 individuals that will actually receive these gift cards, really soon. On the right side of the screen, I call this my Fat Tuesday presentation. Look, our friends over in Georgia, at Georgia Europe, asked the project director from Tennessee Europe, that's always our competitor in FAFSA, all things FAFSA, asked us to actually present. And I'm like, oh, sure, I'll present. And I said, oh my goodness, that's Fat Tuesday. And she emailed on that Monday and said that their chancellor had called a lot of their people into a meeting. And I'm like, oh, okay, we'll do it later. So anyway, this is a placeholder. This will happen. I think she rescheduled it for the 22nd of this month. But nevertheless, all things staff, so partnering with Tennessee Europe to report out to Georgia Europe and answer some questions they have about the policy as we've done it over here. So that's what I have.
Any questions? Yeah, everybody. All right, thank you very much. Moving on, scholarships and grants.
Our Gold Grant Program, that's information basically from 2 weeks ago, well, as of, well, I guess 2 weeks ago, February 16th. We're gonna process over 5 million tonight, but since that time we processed, our total bill as of last week was 32,045,672. So the remaining allocation is at $23.4 million. Another $5+ million will process tonight. The deadline for Gold Grant is March 24th. So our specialist in that area is working with the post-secondary schools so that they can use their allocation up by the bill deadline. Our John R. Justice update. We received an extra allocation for this upcoming year. We went from 39,000 to 86,000, so those awards will be double. Plus for those public defenders and prosecutors. So that's the application count that's showing. Our specialists have been working with the Public Defender Association as well as the District Attorney Association to get those applicants aware and applying for the program. And we're also reaching out to the federal public defenders, which are also eligible for this program. We also send information to our law centers at LSU, Southern, Loyola, and Tulane, because that may spur some students to consider public service as a career option, you know, as far as getting the loans repaid. So our deadline for John R. Justice is April 30th. And we do know that our attorneys have to wait until later in the process to apply because they're getting their taxes done and that sort of thing. So for public defenders, we have 5 awards that we'll give out, and prosecutors will give out 10 awards across our 5 circuits that are eligible. The next slide. I'll cover Gold Youth Challenge first. We're working on some awards for the spring semester, so we haven't processed I think only one for Gold Youth Challenge for the spring, but since the beginning of the academic year, we've done 8 awards. So we're working, there have been some changes with the personnel at the 3 centers in Carville, Minden, and Shreveport that provide these awards. So we're working on getting a couple more awards done at that time. MJ Foster, we basically, students who had signed up for the award and did not enroll by the end of January. Their awards, they were taken off of the list of eligible and waitlisted. So that greatly decreased our wait list. Those students can go back and reapply for the program. Brittany and that group we had a call Monday night. There were right 200 students that were online asking questions about MJ Foster. And then on Tuesday, we had another call with the college reps. And there were some calls regarding that. Proprietary schools, one of the questions they were asking is if the public schools don't use the money, can it be transferred over? And we told them that there have to be a legislative change, that they were capped at 500,000. So that program is out there. Students are applying for it and they're getting awarded that particular program. And before I leave my seat, Andrew Granger, who's one of our IT programmer analysts, will do a short demonstration about how we use technology to make students aware about MJ Foster and our other programs. Andrew, are you ready?
Yes, ma'am. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. So Shane, be prepared. I'm gonna have to share my screen, so you're gonna have to jump back on when I'm done.
I would just like, in another packet, didn't I see a lot more on the MJ Foster that was really, really helpful to me? And I commend putting that together because it really put a lot of little things into place.
You have a much more detailed report in the
Yes.
actual packet,
Yes.
PowerPoint.
It's a weekly update.
Well, it was in PowerPoint form. Because it was rare, because the color, because I can tell you what the images look like. Oh, the colors were there, so it has to be, it was really helpful. I think that people that want to know more, that explained to me the waitlisting stuff and the eligibility, and I just wanted to thank you.
That's the weekly updates that we do, and if advisory board members want to be put on the distribution list for that weekly update, then Wanda, you can send that to them weekly. I send that to House and Senate Ed.
Yes.
that'd be awesome.
Weekly and Senate Finance, as well as the commissioner and Dr. Dinley at the Board of Regents, but certainly if you all want to
But
see
I'm
that.
not making that up. I did read, I
No,
did see
it's
it. It's one of the
detailed
things I
weekly.
downloaded.
We can update it
Yeah,
every week.
that's
I
right.
will add all of y'all to that, that weekly report.
And you'll be able to get
When we
that.
start getting it on
It
Monday.
was really,
Yes.
thank you. So, all right, back to Ian.
Okay, so this is the platform for Quick. This is what an agent would see. You might be familiar with it with Lex on the website. So for the purposes of Mr. Bora's presentation, we now have outbound text messages to capabilities that we can send out now. And this is what you'll see. So I'll show you we sent out last week some messages to everybody that was applying for the MJ Foster grant that got approved. And you can see right here, so this was for the orientation registration. So after they apply and get approved, we sent them to an orientation. So we sent out these 2,425 texts, and of those, this amount got delivered. So the reason the other ones probably didn't get delivered could be a range of reasons: wrong phone number, landline, things like that. And then the day of, we sent out about the same amount. And this is how many, 1,117 got delivered. So to send it out, this is what we do. Pick a little group right here. So we're gonna do MJ Foster. And just for this, I'm gonna do test. So this is the topic. So this helps us determine what group or what topic that we want for record keeping. And you would do it with a little spreadsheet actually. And some of you are about to get a little text message. So you upload it from there, put your list of numbers and your messages. I don't have everybody's number in there, but some of you might receive a message shortly. I think maybe Alice and Shane, maybe Missy Juan.
Yeah, I got it.
Okay, and I just got one. And so a student can, when they get these messages, it can be for marketing purposes. Hey, don't forget about this, have a link. So for the orientation registration, it went to a link for the Zoom webinar, or they can reply to it and it will go to an agent in this platform, and a little message will pop up here when somebody replies. So that's how we sent that out, and we can do 1,000 at a time per spreadsheet, and it's as easy as that. Any questions?
Questions?
Not on that, but where did the group of individuals come from, like, to send that out originally?
MJ Foster happened.
Yeah, it was the registration for the orientation that they attended.
Okay.
And I just wanted to add, thank you very much, Andrew. But as he mentioned, we have the bot, the chat bot on the website. And that's what we call Lex Louisiana Enter. And from there, we could do multiple things, and we're continuing to build on it. So we're using it for online chats. So during our 8 to 4:30 timeframe, we have someone in CAS that's actually answered questions. So you can go in, and if you don't get an answer, you want to talk to an agent, you can click it and then go there. And then now we're doing, we're looking at how to send more emails, text messages, I'm sorry, through this same utility, and doing it that way. We're also going to be looking at, we're doing some routing. So if we have, other people throughout our agency that can take calls outside of CAS, like, MJ Foster, and Brittany's been trained, legal has somebody that's been trained. And so we have what's called routing, where you can say, oh, I have an MJ Foster question, and it can go directly to the agent that's online. And then we're also doing, oh, I have a password reset or either a board system or start, and then that would be sent to via email. Because the IT group may not be online constantly, but if we can get it sent via email through that utility, and then we're doing that as well. So we continue to work with this vendor to get additional functionality. I just wanted to.
Thank you. That's great.
There's more awareness going around because at the Jumpstart convention, I was in a breakout session and I thought I was gonna get one thing, but I did not. It was, whatever the topic was not what we got. But I remember them talking about the MJ Foster and people in the room were like, wait, what is that? And so like, they went on for, expanded on a little bit more and it was like, oh, okay. And like, I saw so many people taking notes. So I appreciate the efforts that you guys are taking because it is now slowly spreading out beyond this group. And the same thing with the scholarships. Like today, here's some scholarships coming up and they had the link. We'll get the slide deck eventually, but they had the link right to what y'all are doing for that too. So thank y'all for that. But it is going out there to other organizations that are promoting it as well.
There's a lot of external communication, that they're commercial on TV, billboards about MJ Foster, so they're doing a lot of other advertisement aside from just at the post-secondary schools too.
No, I was gonna say, there's not a preparatory school in Louisiana that don't know about those two. MJ Foster, especially with the shift of the 90-10, yeah, definitely get more of it. They all text me all the time. I text it to Rhonda. Can you tell me the number? Can you tell us what the public schools get? Can you tell us what we get? If they have money left on the table, can we get the money left on the table?
Yeah.
Just FYI, Robin did tell me that is also readily available on our website.
Oh, okay.
If I don't respond immediately, it's readily available.
You just send it like that.
Yes.
Less is more.
And one final point, to bite off of what Shane was saying in quick, if a student speaks Spanish or Vietnamese, the AI within the chat will convert it for our agents to be able to read it in English. So they really won't see any conversion, but that's just another way we're using the translation services.
And the response goes back the other way too?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, great. Sounds quite marvelous. Questions, comments on that? So we're ready to go on to Mr. Hunter. Tops update.
Yeah, we're still showing a decrease in TOPS expenditures over the last year at this time. This report is a snapshot and is a couple weeks old. There were a few schools that had billed last year but had this year, and a couple more that had billed this year but had at the same time last year. But we had enough billings, and at this point, we're at that $20 million variance is going to be within 20% of the bond. It's probably going to be about 24 million. All the same. The only other thing I'd offer is that the executive budget was published last week, and as of now, TOPS is fully funded for next year.
Anything else?
And our team right now, Ms. Este, Mr. Hunt, Mr. Doucette, and Ms. Lively are working on a top summary for what the reasons are, because we're going to need that budgetarily, and we'll certainly want to share that with the advisory committee of what trends we're seeing that is leading to the decreases in the expenditures. So once that is finalized, Ms. Este is working on data from the clearinghouse and bouncing that against our files to be able to see. We've got a large number of students that are in Louisiana, but not using their TOPS. And so that is the last piece that we're looking at to see, okay, where are these students and what are they doing if they're not utilizing it? So that will be forthcoming upcoming meetings.
So we move on to executive director update.
Basically, our executive director update, and you can advance it to the next slide. We wanted to continue to bring you the research behind where we are transitioning. When we talk about our redesign of our services and refocusing what we're going to expend dollars on, this has been something that we've been talking to you about for the last several years, which is as money decreases, you have to, or you're prudent to be able to direct those funds that you do have towards what the evidence is telling you is going to make the biggest impact with the students that you serve. You've also heard us say LOSFA has had a 117% increase in the programs that we operate, but we've had a 500% increase in the audiences that we are being asked to serve. This is no longer a K-12 outreach entity that we just say, oh, we focus on telling people about TOPS. All of the programs that you are seeing and hearing about range from, yes, some in K-12, right, at the end as in TOPS, but many of those, Go Grant, MJ Foster, you know, all of those things are working on adults, people in the pipeline, as well as returning adults. So a big expansion, which we are looking at. How do we tackle that on an evidence-based source? This is the SREB report, which basically defines student success. What we are finding is affirmation of the current direction that we are headed in. Basically, they are saying, how do you define student success? And again, how do we increase access? We've talked a lot about that. How do we increase completion of post-secondary credentials? And that the fact that those increases in those credentials have to lead to successful careers in order for our economy to be strong. Next slide. We looked at the recommendations. Our team that's doing the redesign of the job descriptions and the positions that we're going to be funding is looking at all of this to make sure, is it in there? Are we covering the best practices? And again, not only are we covering the best practices and what the positions are designed to do, but is our funding aligned with that same best practice? And again, you see affordability, lowering the cost burden. Again, that's when that increase in programs of 117% and audiences by 500% is good. We're doing more for different audiences. Transparency about out-of-pocket costs, supporting students with completing credentials at a faster rate, student success. This continues to come forth in every bit of research that we gather with our data, and that is gathered by other sources such as this. The comprehensive student success coaching models, having well-trained success coaches that are concierge. Again, when Ms. Malvo talked to you about the gold standard with Ms. Sandra Roberson at the Cavalier Care Center, actively learning from those individuals, hearing from those students that are served to say, what is it that you like best about this? So that we can see how do we replicate this in our model or make sure that it is there. Customizing existing student success coaching models. And again, the workforce preparation. Dr. Cobb leaned into that when she talked about the STEM activities. Ms. Malvo leaned into that when she talked about connecting those students with professionals in the field in those student engagement networking groups. Those are groups that are primarily concerned with students already in the pipeline for post-secondary. Many students have gotten jobs and internships out of our student engagement networking groups. So this is something that we're going to continue. The link in your packet is to the full report. We're just doing highlights here. Next is really going to put forth challenges that all of you are already aware of, right? The affordability, you know, this is impacting FAFSA completion rates. Are students even wanting to do a FAFSA because you've given us feedback that they're looking at the bottom line and saying, I can't afford this, I can't come up with this. If there's nobody to show me how I can put a dent in that bottom line, I'm not going to go. Student success services, there it is again. Ms. Malvo talked about the wraparound services, the 211. So LOSFA is in the phase right now of 211 meets college advisor. That's basically what wraparound services are, is if you can assume that a student has other needs besides financial aid. And that they need access to or a handoff to other resources. Programming tied to workforce needs, again, the challenges, metrics, data-driven decision-making, which is what we are demonstrating to you now. We're actively looking at that data, looking at our data and independent data, and aligning jobs, aligning funding around that. And again, that's in keeping with aligning with state and institutional policies and federal and state funding policies. We can control the state funding that we request and how we use it to some degree, and it's based on research-based practices. Next slide. The enrollment trends that we're looking at, and we're beginning to see some of the enrollment trends in the state that were mirroring the TOPS trends are beginning to differ. And we're looking at that. You're seeing that the less selective institutions are being more impacted by the decreases than the highly selective institutions. Again, we're also seeing this, Este's looking at that data now. Are those high school graduates directly entering into the workforce and instead of foregoing college? Ms. Lively's working with her on that because that encompasses data that LOSFA does not have. The clearinghouse does not have workforce data in it. So how do you find out if those students went to work? How are you going to know that? LOSFA does not keep that information. So we're trying to establish partnerships to let us know that so that we can let policymakers know this is what we're seeing. Next slide. Affordability, again, no secret to this group. This just basically gives you a slide if you are needing to show this to policymakers that basically shows the inability of Pell Grants to keep up with the rising cost of college, affecting affordability, affecting limited income students the hardest. Next slide. Distance education, that increasing, we also know that that has implications for the broadband issues, the connectivity issues, and in some instances, the inability of a limited income student because of those things and other factors to do well in this environment. I think COVID showed us all that. Next slide. Mental health, we are seeing that. I don't know that you can turn on a news channel without seeing some type of documentary about mental health. We are definitely seeing that. We are now tracking, talking about data, the exceptions for TOPS that are related to mental health so that we can continue to amplify this conversation and also look at our services too. Are we aware of what campuses are offering? And if campuses are not offering, what community-based organizations are offering with respect to mental health supports? And in our student engagement groups, those are smaller groups which are more conducive to students discussing items that are stressors to them and us being able to help them cope with those stressors. We just got an affirmation yesterday on CBS Mornings. There was a feature on a high school that is doing small groups, engaging students in ways to address and combat stress. And I proudly texted Ms. Balboa that affirmation, we're doing this, right? And she proceeded to give me an example about an encounter in a networking group on Monday, where a student was very stressed about an exam. And there were other students on the call that passed the exam already. And there was immediate, this was not on the agenda, but it became the agenda. There was an immediate outpouring of support for, let me tell you what we did. Again, understanding that it isn't just academic and financial aid counseling, but it's wraparound services. See, and I think that's the last slide, but just we will keep you apprised as we see more data to let you know that those things relate to the folks behind me and at this table that work very, very hard to see, are we providing those services across the board from secondary to post-secondary to returning adults. And that's it. Question?
I just want to make a comment real quick. My nephew is about to graduate from Law Tech, and he was a very good high school student. And college has really opened his eyes to a stress level that he's never seen before. And
I relate to those services because I do think that that's something that very much benefit him. He's never had this kind of, he had a class that he had to take again, but all of his friends had passed it and he didn't. And he was very much struggling with that. So those are sorely and desperately needed services. So I'm happy personally to hear that those things are and will be offered.
We continue to build upon it and to build upon this evidence and to build upon student voices as to what students are telling us and what they're saying is most important. Because basically what they're telling us when we relate that to the TOPS data and the eligibility and are you qualifying for the standard which Louisiana bears for college readiness, which is eligibility for TOPS. It's this. It's a comprehensive mentoring, advising, and the wraparound services that continue to come forth, whether it's just comparing the data to the services provided or comparing the data from student feedback in focus groups. It's the same thing and saying, you know, you need to assume that I need more than just academics and financial aid. But thank you for that information.
It always, unfortunately, TOPS is still the big elephant and people, it's just not giving the kids the money. That's what's so hard. People will say, well, TOPS is fully funded, isn't that? And that's what and that's not, you're not gonna get that college completion access success moved up to what, I forget what the goal is for 2035 or whatever. Should do other things because but we're still focused on TOPS. These things are so important, and that's what the MJ Foster thing is really. I was so impressed because I'm really struggling to get all of those pieces in my mind. That presentation is that, well, you know, why are people not eligible? And it's just a learning process, and you all are the boots on the ground. So I appreciate that. It's a struggle for people who are not involved to get that.
Well, and it's a struggle every year. I mean, trying to get the students to fill out the FAFSA this year. I have had parents say, I don't want my child signing up for a loan right now. Like, we have been educated. It's 6 years that this has been a requirement. I had a parent call me like, I don't think this is right. And I was like, sir, this has been a state law for 7 years, but it's been 6 years enacted here. And that's the part that's so frustrating, is just continuing to educate people. And then I tell them, this is your TOPS application. Like, we say it every year. It is published everywhere, and it's every single year it's having to re-educate people on this. So when you say TOPS, like, that is the headliner, but there are all these other programs. But I mean, the first step is to get them to fill out the FAFSA. Then you can figure out where everything else is and have that conversation, you know, based on that information. So I'm not anti that. I'm glad it's fully funded, even though it doesn't meet the same requirements for, like, financially as it did in the past. It's just where we start. And so, but we got to get them to start first. And there's lack of information, but it's wrong information from the people in the communities that keep telling them, oh, you don't need to do this because I made too much money. I didn't get a Pell Grant. You're not going to get a Pell Grant. You're going to get a loan. Like that. I mean, it's frustrating for us because we're like, no, listen, you know, like, I mean, I was just talking to Ebony earlier about this. Like, I had a student that made a 16 on the ACT, but she just passed work keys. She has her like hub account set up, and she brings me the paper because I've never seen it because I don't have access. And she's like, can you explain this to me? I was like, I have a meeting on Thursday. I'm going to learn how to tell you what it is you need to know. So Ebony walks me through the whole process of saying, like, hey, it gives you both. And because she was like, I can't get TOPS Tech because I don't have these. Like, she didn't understand it, right? But once I can understand how to tell her, you're going to be okay because all you need to get is this. Then after you graduate, after it's processed after June 1st, all these things that I know now, I can tell them. But I am one person. I don't know how many counselors we have in the state. But I mean, like, this is information that we need to be able to tell them. How do we get that out to them? I mean, we're doing a great job of that, but it's like, when you know, you can explain it. But then I have I have 100 parents, you know, and then I have the ones in the community saying, oh, you don't have to do that. Don't worry about that. You're not going to do this. They get injured when they go work in the plants. They try to go military and they have medical conditions they didn't know. And so, like, that's what Barry's saying. We're like, and she did a great job when she was there because I had some really headstrong students, and she just talked to them like a mom, like, let me tell you I have been all over the state. And it helped me because I'm in a school and they don't listen to me, but she was like, I have been everywhere and I am telling you, this is what it needs to be. I have watched students that have gotten injured in the military and come back and been able to go to college because they already had the FAFSA. I had 5 1 year, 5 students that all said they were not going to go. I said, I don't ask you to do anything. I'm just asking you, please complete this because it's going to benefit you. And all 5 came back and were like, I'm so glad you made me do that because I don't have to stress right now. School started at North Shore that day. She came and was able to do it. She's like, hey, I just want to let you know, I signed up today as school started because I already have my FAFSA and I already have my eligibility, whatever y'all send out to the schools. So
Here is, and while I'm thinking about this, right? When we talk about elevating the student voice, that is one thing that is so, I think, valuable about the composition of this group. Because we have boots on the ground that can provide all of us with a total perspective of what's happening, such that then we know, well, how can we message, right? Because again, none of us are ever going to get enough staff to do this one-on-one. So this is why the importance of the technology that you're seeing. This is why the importance of increasing the hub and increasing that match and fit in the hub where and we're working on that, where when you send a student, they can easily tell, okay, do you see that big bottom line? Okay, now do you see these things? If you get this and this and this and this, they have to physically see that bottom line decrease. And it has to become doable. And what does that relate to with jobs that were at a higher wage than one that you could have just gone right there to Walmart without completing a FAFSA, taking out a loan and become a personal shopper because those wages look very good to students when they're walking in and they don't require loan debt. So any of those voices that you have with those stories of, you know what, you told me to do that and it worked for me. If you will reach out to Shane and Ebony, we will work with Andrew through the grace of Ms. Brown with allowing that collaboration to be able to get those student stories out there because students are going to listen to other students and many times before they're going to listen to us, just as in the networking group, right? Wasn't on the agenda to talk about that particular test, but some students celebrated the fact that they had passed it, and the one student that was really at a meltdown stage said, wait, can you tell me what you did? And that was the most valuable thing on the agenda from that point forward. So certainly any of those stories that you have, if those students are willing to be spokespersons, we are in the business of trying to elevate that and get them back and help you. Because again, you said it very eloquently before, it is going to take all of us. There is no one entity that can do it.
So you mentioned about not knowing how to look at what's the student hub. Can y'all do a webinar and maybe include that inside of the counselors?
Our spring College Crossing webinar, we're going to go into the student hub in depth. And Christy has already said we're going to do that, and we're also doing a FAFSA roundtable with counselors. And Christy said she would, Ebony and I are going to facilitate that and get Christy and maybe a couple other counselor about like best practices and stuff. But that is already scheduled and it's going to be
And for those who
March.
can't attend, you still put it inside the.
I will record it. It will be available on our
Wonderful.
counselor or our website.
Okay, one, and inside, not just like a counselor connect.
Yeah, the counselor communication about the webinar is going to go out today. The registration will go out tomorrow. I mean, registration will go out next week. But the counselor communication about save the date, the graphics team. Actually, graphics team did my graphic this morning while I'm in this meeting. So as soon as I get my desk this afternoon, that will go out.
To me, that does, when you're out and you're talking to them, they will definitely bring stuff to you and you're like, okay, what is this? And you don't want to say, well, I don't know what this is. But, you know, you try to help them as much as possible because you are the people that they're talking to, so.
go respond to, let me look at it, and I'm looking and I'm like, okay. And I was gonna bring it with me because like she printed me out a copy. She was like, and I left it on my desk and I was like, oh my gosh, I left it on my desk. But I looked and I could kind of figure it out, but I want to be able to know so that I'm speaking to say, these are the dates, this is how it works, you know? And so, but it, again, it has to happen where a student is proactive to be able to ask the questions, because I would have never known that it was something that wasn't easily understandable. And then she told me this, she's like, they're gonna get an email. And I said, well, what email? She said, from the FAFSA, that when you fill out the FAFSA. I was like, oh, okay. So if my students had used their school email account, they need to make sure they change that. Like, but this is a conversation that came about today. And I'm like, okay, now I need to go back because I don't know which email address they use. I know they lose access when they graduate. I don't know when y'all's email is gonna go out. They may not even know. So.
And to piggyback on Christie's comment, in terms of rolling out our student campaign, that we also think that during that campaign and also during our top 10 teams. If you're using your hot email address, at some point, it notifications from us are going to go to their email address and put, well, that's after that's the moving forward, and that's what it's sent to you. If it's your school email address, it needs to be changed. And so we try to be proactive in spring, leading up to summer, to let them know this is how you access the hub. This is how you look at your top tracker. If you don't have your LOSFA ID, this is how you get it, to make sure, back to Christie's point, that they have this information, so that they are aware of, okay, this is when top processing starts, right? You're not gonna see anything in May. You haven't graduated yet, right? And just kind of preparing them and kind of putting those tools in their hands so that you don't have to email us or, wait on hold, straight to that student, and checks.
And see, I've been piggybacking off of that in name, making sure your name matches on your application, on your files with the school, with everything that you do, even at your college level, your admissions. All those things have to match when it's times for your top stuff to kick in. So if your stuff doesn't match, I always think about the young lady who put on all of her stuff, Beth, and her name was Elizabeth, and she couldn't understand why her stuff, her FAFSA didn't match. She couldn't understand any of that. And I was like, but so I don't even remember how we caught it, but I said, so what is your name? She said, what? Everybody calls me Beth. I said, no, what is your name? And it appears on your social security. What's your government name? And she said, Elizabeth. I said, you need to change all of this to Elizabeth. I got that they call you that. Wonderful, beautiful, but nothing in the world is gonna match because on every piece of paper, your government name is Elizabeth. I know they call you whatever, but yeah.
I had one on Tuesday, Daniel, our coworker in Cask, and I did a FAFSA completion event on Tuesday, and then one of the students' grandmother walked in, and she was just like, I just want to make sure everything is set for when she graduates in May. We've already done the FAFSA, but I came here today just to make sure everything is okay. So I had looked her up in our award system, and she didn't have her ACT on file. But it was because of that, her name matched, but her address when she took the ACT was different from when she completed the FAFSA. So our award system wasn't matching the student because the address and the phone number were different. So that also makes a big difference. But my biggest pet peeve for this FAFSA completion this season has been with the parents, and the parents coming back and saying, I just don't want the federal government to know how much I make.
Number one thing I hear is, I don't want to give out my information.
Ma'am, they gave you the taxes.
Don't file your taxes, you have a problem.
It's true. But that's not where the issue is. It is literally, they do not want to, they have it, they just, I don't want to do it.
We have a student right now whose mom started filling out her FAFSA. The mom died. The FAFSA is now no signature. Needed to say signature and complete for copies. Dad refuses.
Yep. I don't know how this is done, but people just, they're gonna say, I can't do this with their hands. And then they start to whine, and then they start to complain about how this person, this agency, this whatever, this institution, not helpful, and so much going on. I don't know whether you put little good stories, little nuggets someplace that are picked up on TV, like all of these things that you see that an adult can say, well, I think I read something about that. Let me go back and look. I think people just get overwhelmed and then they quit. And the older you are, the more likely you are to quit and whine and become the victim of, well, they just didn't do their job.
Because it's easy.
That's right.
I'm gonna say this because I don't, you said this, but I don't know if it was in one of those old counselor meetings where we met in this room or if it was since I've been on this board. But when I understood that the whole reason that it became a state law was because there were billions, I don't know how much money was left on the table for TOPS Tech. Because those students didn't fill it out. When I grasped that, that's what helped me explain it to them, because that is the group of people that you're gonna have your university bound, they're gonna fill it out, they're gonna do whatever, but it's the TOPS Tech, the jumpstart students who could go benefit. Well, they're like, well, I'm just gonna go do this. Well, why wouldn't you, finish the program? It might take a year or 2 years, but you'll have it paid for. Oh, they'll pay for it, the company will. Well, what if they don't pay for it? And you've earned this, to empower those students to say, you might not have decided to go university bound because that wasn't for you. There are still all these opportunities for you. And in some ways, the funding is there plus some for those kids. That's the part for me. It's even with my university bound students that may not be ready to spend $20,000, go here first. It's going to help you. You're being smaller classes. There are some that I recommend that for, and that's what they try to do. But I mean, for me, when I had those parents call me, I am able to say with confidence, because I got it from you, saying this is why. It's not just politicians somewhere making this decision. They were informed. So all the struggle that I go through, it's because I know that at some point it's going to benefit some of these children. Right. They are going to hear what we have to say. It's hard. It is very, very hard. And we look at them, we're like, you can't graduate without them. Well, then you have the people that push the waivers and they're like, just fill out all these, because it's easier for people to just do that, but it doesn't help those people. And then they're gone, well, not the attitude, but we don't have to worry about them anymore because they've already graduated, right? But those of us that are counselors that really have dug in, we do care. And we'll try to help them, but then at that point, after you've graduated, it's harder for us to. And so, during the time that they're there, giving them that much information is very hard. But it is very rewarding for the stories we're able to share of here's this one success story. Now that I know that you guys are looking for it, I know I can't get in touch with these other ones, but I will start looking, or listening for it, or, talking to my colleagues about, hey, do you have any of these stories? Because they're looking for them. Because what she's trying to do is exactly what you're saying. How do we put that out there? Now, social media, we can throw that out there, We know that they're watching at least the lots of social media for the scholarships. It's shared everywhere. So,
well, and I'm at an age where all of my children, all my friends' children are ready to go to college. So I get questions all the time from my girlfriends, what is this? What is this? But I worked, and I've worked for LCTCS. So I don't know if people know the tech route because it's so ingrained for a year. Well, I honestly didn't want to go to college. I wanted to be a hairdresser. That's what I wanted to do. Parents pushed me into a 4-year. I'm not going to tell you how long it took me, but I finished. It was over 4 years, but I finished. But seeing all these other programs, especially in the South, I feel like that's what we thrive off of. We thrive off of P-Tech, and we thrive off of air conditioning and plumbing and things like that. And people don't even know. People don't even know that you don't have to go to a 4-year university. There's other amazing things that you can do. And it took me working at a cosmetology school to know about it. So, I wish TOPS wasn't around when I graduated back in the old days, back in the 90s, but it's something that's amazing. It's such an opportunity.
Well, see, I have a son who is TOPS University Diploma Pathway, 3.75 GPA, graduated with honors. And he first told me when he was a sophomore in high school, he wanted to enroll in a welding class. And I'm like, as an elective, but why? You were TOPS University Diploma Pathway. And he looked at me and he said, but Mama, if you don't let me do it or try it, how will you know if I ever liked it or not? And from the welding class, it became, he discovered that he liked to work with his hands better. And during COVID, I had a friend of mine that goes to our church who has a plumbing business. And he was looking for helpers, and he goes into 8th grade classes and he talks about careers, like what's the name of the Prestige Jumpstart, not the career, it's the 8th grade class.
Oh, Quest for Success.
Quest for Success. And so he goes and he talks to them and he says, I go in there and I ask, how many of you want to be a plumber when you grow up? And nobody raises their hand. And he gave me a statistic. He said, for every 4 master plumbers that are retiring in America, there's only 1 master plumber replacing them. So my son went to work for him. He is now still, after 2 years after graduation from high school, becoming a master plumber with him, still working for him. And when you break down his hourly salary, he's making, like, break mine down with the state, he's making as much per hour as I do 2 years out of high school. So it's, but, and he was the type too that, and from his friends that I talked to, when they look at college, if you even say loan or student loan debt or anything like that, they're like, not for me. Like, we're not going there. It's like they either want to do all the AP and try to get out in 3 years to get out debt free, because they do not want to take out a student loan and have to go to school at all.
Well, I almost feel like I have a marketing background, and my marketing mind is saying, take your 5 top questions that you have and do a 1 sheet. I don't want to give out my information. And then have a 1 sheet about the government already has your information. Don't stress about it, work with it. I don't want to go to college. Well, did you know that there's these options? What people are saying. Address those head on. And maybe that will take some of the anxiety or fear, or my passport was filled out on paper. Like, wow, the changes and the accessibility to be able to have the thing that connects it to your
Iris.
the
IRS.
the IRS data retrieval. Wow. Like, I don't know what all that stuff means. Like, do I have a business farm? Do I have this? Do I have that? That's scary for a person. And it's the government's information and then putting it in for you. Why are you scared? It's just the government information going from one place to another. And it's just mind blowing being in this industry and seeing the advancements that have happened. I would say in a relatively short period of time. I mean, I graduated from high school in '94, and it was paper. You sent it out to the abyss. You got a little piece of paper back telling you what your EFC was. You didn't know what an EFC was. And you have access to all this information now. And I don't know why people are so scared of it.
You had to answer all 108 questions. Skip logic was not a thing.
Yep, the good old days. I think it would even be funny to put up an old FAFSA and be like, look how far we've gone.
With a 4-digit PIN that you could not forget. And to this very day, I still remember. And when they said the state key, and I'm like, we used to have to like set it and we could never forget it.
There was no reset.
Okay, Dr. Henderson got a call from the governor's office, which is why, so.
We still
But-
have,
Yeah, so I don't want to have to lose anybody else, so I guess we need to move on here, but I appreciate all of this. Okay, so the next would be new business. I think we've got a couple of motions to take care of.
There we go.
One more. This is. Oh, we're back. The first new business is the rulemaking. Consider rulemaking to amend the start savings program rules to implement Secure 2.0. You have in your other packages, you saw all those changes. So unless there are any questions, can I have a motion to approve? I motion. Thank you. Second, please.
I second.
Thank you. Good job. So it's been moved and seconded to approve these. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, so that's approved. And then the next one, we have the TOPS exceptions. And you had those in your printed packet, and I think if here are these students, this just points out one more thing to me, the value of if these students who need the TOPS and are aware of TOPS, and they still screw up and just don't, and they make mistakes. Think about all the other students who are not in the TOPS program, how many mistakes they make. And that's why we have to continue to be vigilant and help them when they're in college. Just exactly what you said, because these students, that's money for them, and the others is just so many other things. So anybody have any questions or
I
comments?
had, well, one question. I guess it was the first student, and they asked, she was supposed to enroll by fall 22, and she's enrolled in December. Is that correct?
Yes.
So that would be considered fall for her?
No, not automatically, because as generally we understand it, fall semester starts in August, September at the latest for fall quarter at Louisiana Tech. We do understand.
That wasn't a proprietary?
It was a proprietary school. I was getting
Okay.
at.
Oh, okay.
Proprietary school, that is considered 2P of 2022. 1P, which would be the traditional fall semester, starts September 1st. So she needs the exception for that 1P 2020.
Okay. All right. Now, another thing, based on what we just had our whole conversation about, I don't think it's her, but one of the students mentioned that they had not received a lot of the information. Is that something that, if I read correctly, I think they said that, because I went to look for it on our, whatchamacallit, to kind of make sure. I think they were not told some information incorrectly about something at a school.
This was, I believe this was the 4th student. She had not gotten information from her school about what she needed to do for the transfer process and how she needed to communicate with professors and Moodle and all of those different things.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I guess that kind of brought back to what we were just talking about. I guess if it was a school that we have that information, I guess as a TOPS person, could we maybe share that where she can go to whoever at that particular school? We'll just say she's at LSUS, because I think Dr. Melville mentioned about she had attended there. I mean, just connect that dot for, so in the future, hey, we're gonna do this, but you need to reach out to these folks here and find that and get that information. I guess to me if they're TOPS recipients, not just for the exception people, but just period, if they're, hey, did you know that this information is there? These folks are there. If you need help at LTCCS, hey, on this campus, you can reach out to these folks to find this information where you can kind of help, just like in the case of your nephew, to me, at Louisiana Tech. If it's there, even the students may not know that, even though it's on their website. But if we're TOPS recipient, hey, did you know that that's available to you? So this is the FYI. I thought that would be based on what we just talked about. Yeah. That was my only question of, I couldn't, in my mind, as a proprietary, if that was still considered within the fall. I know they do have a fall 1 and a fall 2. I guess in my mind, that's what I thought. Yeah. Okay.
That's gotta be frustrating for the documents to be held somewhere, like just held up, like.
It happens.
I understand it happens, but like for the student, I mean, like, okay, you're held up, okay, now you're registered in February, you miss these classes, the professor's gonna make his classes say, you can't miss, you missed them. You're not in the text, oh, you should be, we're here from the beginning, like, that is gonna be very frustrating as how old would she be? Maybe 21, 22-year-old student, like, I'm doing what I gotta do, I had to move schools, there had to be a reason she moved schools, like, there's something that went wrong. Yeah, but I'm saying, no, but what I mean is there's an event that occurred that made, because you want to start finish where you started. Maybe, I mean, all these different things. I mean, it does say in there about the apartments and stuff, but you had to move. Crises have happened in a child's life. Yeah. I mean, oh goodness, feel for them.
Any other questions or comments? If not, can a motion to approve?
I'll make the motion.
Second, please. Second. All right, it's been moved and seconded to approve these recommendations. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Same. So those are approved. And you have the next meeting date, April the 6th. And didn't have an opportunity. Now is your opportunity. I need a motion to adjourn.
I'll make one sure.
I was trying to help you out. I'm just gonna leave you both.
Why don't you make that adjourn?
That's the second. All right, thank you. So we are adjourned.
Question.
We do have lunch, so there's lemon pepper shrimp and there's grilled chicken if you can't eat shrimp or like can't eat chicken because it's Lent season, and there's also a vegetarian option. There's salad, rolls, and dessert, and he's got orzo and carrots with the meats.
All right, thank you.
Let me, I didn't see any dates for May.
Huh?
I didn't see any meeting dates for May. Do we have?
You don't have one.
May meeting,
I got April 6th, right?
May 9th.
Or May 9th. But-
So we May 9th.
Oh, May 9th. Oh, May 9th, it's May 9th.
Yeah, 9th.
And
And then we got one in June, 22nd.
Maybe I do have on the calendar, I was on third.
Okay.
Oh, well, yeah, May 9th, okay. It was nice to see you as well. May 9th.
Oh.
Plus, yeah.
Oh, mine is-
Sports. I get it.
That would be.
Hey,
I do not know.
what about June? What day?
August 3rd. June is,
Give the 20 thing back on it and.
Thank you.